Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotar Tata Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotar Tata Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Uh-oh, I'm off center. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We must be on the last verse. Tapas? Text 55?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. All right. Let me start that again. I'm sorry. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 31st day of May, 2021 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary, by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in the last verse of chapter 11, the Universal Form, text 55 on page 504. I'm going to wait for our tardy member. Page 504. 504. Got it? Okay. Oh, you have a different book. There's one book that has different printing, so number is 55. Mat karma krin, mat paramo, man bhakta, sangavarjitaha, mat karma krin, mat paramo, man bhakta sangavarjitaha, nirvaira, sarvabhuteshu, ya samam eti pandava, nirvaira sarvabhuteshu, yak samam eti pandava, mat karma krin mat paramo, mat bhakta sangavarjitaha, nirvaira sarvabhuteshu, yak samam eti pandava. Yeah. Go ahead. Mat karma krin mat paramo. Does he have? Mat bhakta sangha varjitaha. Page 504. Yaksamam eti pandava. Mat karma krin mat paramo. Mat bhakta sangha varjitaha. Nirvairak sarva bhuteshu. Yaksamam eti pandava. Mat karma krin mat paramo. Mat bhakta sangha varjitaha. Nirvairak sarva bhuteshu. Yaksamam eti pandava. Mat karma krin mat paramo. Mat bhakta sangha varjitaha. Nirvairak sarva bhuteshu. Yaksamam eti pandava. Word by words. Mat karma krit, engaged in doing my work. Mat paramaha, considering me the supreme. Mat bhaktaha, engaged in my devotional service. Sangavarjitaha, freed from the contamination of fruitive activities and mental speculation. Nirvairaha, without an enemy. Sarvabhuteshu, among all living entities. Yaha, one who, saha, he, mam, unto me, eti, comes, Pandava, O son of Pandu. Translation. Krishna says to Arjuna, my dear Arjuna, he who engages in my pure devotional service, free from the contaminations of fruitive activities and mental speculation. He who works for me, who makes me the supreme goal of his life, and who is friendly to every living being. He certainly comes to me. Purport. Anyone who wants to approach the supreme of all the personalities of Godhead on the Krishna Loka planet in the spiritual sky and be intimately connected with the Supreme Personality, Krishna, must take this formula as stated by the Supreme Himself. Therefore, this verse is considered to be the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is a book directed to the conditioned souls who are engaged in the material world with the purpose of lording it over nature and who do not know of the real spiritual life. The Bhagavad Gita is meant to show how one can understand his spiritual existence and his eternal relationship with the Supreme Spiritual Personality, and to teach one how to go back home, back to Godhead. Now here is the verse which clearly explains the process by which one can attain success in his spiritual activity, devotional service. As far as work is concerned, one should transfer his energy entirely to Krishna-conscious activities. As stated in the Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.255, Anasaktasya vishayan yataham upayunjataha nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyamuchyate. No work should be done by any man except in relationship to Krishna. This is called Krishna Karma. One may be engaged in various activities, but one should not be attached to the result of his work. The result should be done only for him, Krishna. For example, one may be engaged in business, but to transform that activity into Krishna consciousness, one has to do business for Krishna. If Krishna is the proprietor of the business, then Krishna should enjoy the profit of the business. If a businessman is in possession of thousands and thousands of dollars, and if he has to offer all this to Krishna, he can do it. This is work for Krishna. Instead of constructing a big building for his sense gratification, he can construct a nice temple for Krishna, and he can install the deity of Krishna and arrange for the deity's service, as is outlined in the authorized books of devotional service. This is all Krishna Karma. One should not be attached to the result of his work, but the result should be offered to Krishna, and one should accept as prasadam the remnants of offerings to Krishna. If one constructs a very big building for Krishna and installs the deity of Krishna, one is not prohibited from living there, but it is understood that the proprietor of the building is Krishna. That is called Krishna consciousness. If, however, one is not able to construct a temple for Krishna, one can engage himself in cleansing the temple of Krishna. That is also Krishna Karma. One can cultivate a garden. Anyone who has land, in India at least any poor man has a certain amount of land, can utilize that for Krishna by growing flowers to offer him. One can sow tulsi plants, because tulsi leaves are very important, and Krishna has recommended this in the Bhagavad Gita, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam. Krishna desires that one offer him either a leaf or a flower or fruit or a little water, and by such an offering he is satisfied. This leaf especially refers to the tulsi. So one can sow tulsi and pour water on the plant. Thus, even the poorest man can engage in the service of Krishna. These are some of the examples of how one can engage in working for Krishna. The word mat paramaha, so he's going through the verse systematically. The word mat paramaha refers to one who considers the association of Krishna in his supreme abode to be the highest perfection of life. Such a person does not wish to be elevated to the higher planets such as the moon or sun or heavenly planets, or even the highest planet of this universe, Brahmaloka. He has no attraction for that. He is attracted only to being transferred to the spiritual sky. And even in the spiritual sky, he is not satisfied with merging into the glowing Brahmajyoti effulgence, for he wants to enter the highest spiritual planet, namely Krishna Loka, Goloka Vrindavan. He has full knowledge of that planet, and therefore he is not interested in any other. As indicated by the word madbhaktaha, he fully engages in devotional service, specifically in the 9 processes of devotional service, devotional engagement: hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering prayers, carrying out the orders of the Lord, making friends with him, and surrendering everything to him. One can engage in all 9 devotional processes, or 8 or 7, or at least in 1, and that will surely make one perfect. The term Sangha Varjitaha is very significant. One should disassociate himself from persons who are against Krishna. Not only are the atheistic persons against Krishna, but so also are those who are attracted to fruitive activities and mental speculation. Therefore, the pure form of devotional service is described in the Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu 1.1.11 as follows. Anyabilashita shunyam jnana karma janavritam anukulyena krishnanu shilanam bhaktiruttama. In this verse, Srila Rupa Goswami clearly states that if anyone wants to execute unalloyed devotional service, he must be freed from all kinds of material contamination. He must be freed from the association of persons who are addicted to fruitive activities and mental speculation. When freed from such unwanted association and from the contamination of material desires, one favorably cultivates knowledge of Krishna, that is called pure devotional service. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam, from the Hari Bhakti Vilas 11.676. One should think of Krishna and act for Krishna favorably, not unfavorably. Kamsa was an enemy of Krishna's. From the very beginning of Krishna's birth, Kamsa planned in so many ways to kill him. And because Kamsa was always unsuccessful, he was always thinking of Krishna. Thus, while working, while eating, while sleeping, he was always Krishna conscious in every respect. But that Krishna consciousness was not favorable, and therefore, in spite of his always thinking of Krishna 24 hours a day, he was considered a demon, and Krishna at last killed him. Of course, anyone who was killed by Krishna attains salvation immediately, but that is not the aim of the pure devotee. The pure devotee does not even want salvation. He does not want to be transferred even to the highest planet, Goloka Vrindavan. His only objective is to serve Krishna wherever he may be. A devotee of Krishna is friendly to everyone. Therefore, it is said here that he has no enemy near Vairaha. How is this? A devotee situated in Krishna consciousness knows that only devotional service to Krishna can relieve a person from all the problems of life. He has personal experience of this, and therefore he wants to introduce this system, Krishna consciousness, into human society. There are many examples in history of devotees of the Lord who risked their lives for the spreading of God consciousness. The favorite example is Lord Jesus Christ. He was crucified by the non-devotees, but he sacrificed his life for spreading God consciousness. Of course, it would be superficial to understand that he was killed. Similarly, in India also, there are many examples such as Thakur Haridas and Prahlad Maharaj. Why such risk? Because they wanted to spread Krishna consciousness, and it is difficult. A Krishna-conscious person knows that if a man is suffering, it is due to his forgetfulness of his eternal relationship with Krishna. Therefore, the highest benefit one can render to human society is relieving one's neighbor from all material problems. In such a way, a pure devotee is engaged in the service of the Lord. Now, we can imagine how merciful Krishna is to those engaged in his service, risking everything for him. Therefore, it is certain that such persons must reach the supreme planet after leaving the body. In summary, the universal form of Krishna, which is a temporary manifestation, and the form of time, which devours everything, and even the form of Vishnu, four-handed, have all been exhibited by Krishna. Thus, Krishna is the origin of all these manifestations. It is not that Krishna is a manifestation of the original Vishnu Rupa, or Vishnu. Krishna is the origin of all forms. There are hundreds and thousands of Vishnus, but for a devotee, no form of Krishna is important, but the original form, two-handed Shyamasundar. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that those who are attached to the Shyamasundar form of Krishna in love and devotion can see him always within the heart and cannot see anything else. One should understand, therefore, that the purport of this 11th chapter is that the form of Krishna is essential and supreme. Thus then the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 11th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of the universal form. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So I don't know about you, but that was a very illuminating purport. I mean, it went through very systematically this last verse here, which Prabhupada says near the beginning is the essence of the entire Bhagavad Gita. So let's explore this in a little more depth. Prabhupada he goes through it, as I mentioned, word by word. The first qualification, the goal of this whole thing, in other words, the result of meeting these qualifications in this verse is Yaksamameti Pandava, he comes to me. And the fact that those are the last words in the chapter indicate that that's the goal we should all be striving for. So mat karma krin, the first thing is activity. We have to do something. You live in this world, everybody is doing something. In the human form of life, we have the opportunity, because of the higher intelligence, of acting not just on the basis of the material urges, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, which is animal life, For higher purposes, for something that's beyond the limitations of the material body, either gross or subtle. So here Krishna says the perfection of activity is working for me, but karma krin. You may recall way back in the third canto, we had this key verse in the third canto, text 9. Yagyartat karmanon yatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha. That everything we do has to be done for the sake of Vishnu or Jagya. It's interesting that the word Jagya, which means sacrifice, is also used to mean Vishnu himself, meaning that all sacrifices really should be done for Vishnu, not for some material motive and therefore worshipping some other god. So otherwise, if you're not giving the fruit to Krishna, you're not working with him as the motive for working, then your work will bind you. This theme keeps coming up again, and it's just a basic fact of spiritual life, is that we're sitting in these material bodies which are a result of a whole history of activities that we performed in previous lives. Some of them sinful, some of them pious, we've cultivated all kinds of desires which remain unfulfilled ultimately, and leave a residue in the mind. Oh, I wish I could enjoy that. And you leave the body, and that subtle body, as we learn in the 15th chapter, very nicely described near the beginning. That subtle body that we formed, which this, whatever is, what does it say? Yang bhavi smarang bhavam, jajachante kalevaram, tam dame vaitikondaya sadadvad bhava bhavita. This is a central fact of spiritual life, which nobody knows, is that we have two bodies. We have the coat, which is the external body, and the shirt, which is the subtle body, right? The shirt and the coat. Probably would use that analogy. So we take off so many coats, but the shirt we don't take off. The shirt stays with us. In other words, the subtle body survives. And that subtle body, we're making it every moment by our decisions, what we do. Now, most people are just being dragged along by the senses, controlled by the different modes of nature, under the illusion of some kind of independence. But everybody is tightly bound by the laws of nature. We can't fly, You can't stop time. Everyone's getting older. So all your hopes for enjoyment, for material enjoyment in this body, must ultimately be frustrated, no matter who you are. A poor homeless guy in the street or some billionaire, it's all going to be frustrated. You may buy, and yet now the thing is, I keep track of these things, buy some extraordinarily expensive yacht. The yachts go into hundreds of millions of dollars, and then you take your yacht out on the ocean, you think you're controlling, you got it made, But, one little wave, some tsunami, some big storm. I read a long time ago that there are sometimes waves, they don't know where they come from. Big waves that just rise up and they swallow some ship that's just going along. There's no cloud in the sky, but somehow something's happened underneath, maybe some earthquake or something. Boom. So the point is, material life is very tenuous. Padam padam yad vipadam natesham. What does it mean? Danger at every step. Prabhupada loved this verse. It's very poetic. So, padam padam yad vipadam. Vipadam is danger. Danger at every step. Who can deny it? We're living here in SanDiego. I've been here 32 years, I told you I had this one earthquake, But it's not, you think, oh God, I'm not living here anymore, it's an earthquake. No, not just me, but everybody, who says, okay, we lasted it, now let's watch the football game or something. You forget. It's just that material. So, but there's danger at every step. From the diseases, the adhyatmic miseries can hit you. The adidaiva can come at you, and adibhautic, from people staying locked down and restricted and losing their jobs and worrying about getting evicted. There's all kind of anger. There's a certain amount of mental disease that's boiling up. And, they handed out all these stimulus checks, right? And some of the devotees got one. I didn't get any. Many people took that stimulus check and they went out and bought guns. Huge amount of... There's already millions, hundreds of millions of guns in America. So now you have this mental disease. A certain percentage of people are going to crack under the strain, and everyone's got guns. Doesn't take a genius to see that's a problem, right? Is that why we have mass shootings practically every day now in America? Is it crazy or what? So you go to the grocery store and some nut comes in there with a gun and starts shooting. It hasn't happened down the street here yet, but San Jose is not that far. So what's our solution to that? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. At every moment you have to be ready, literally. And so, mat karma krin. Now, what usually happens is people work hard, they get some money, they get a little place, they go into debt, so they work hard to pay off the debts. But so the whole thing is that they're not, the last thing in the world they're going to do is to sacrifice for Krishna. They're working hard so that they can make their way in the world, But that's tying so many knots to your heart, right? There's fear of not being able to make the payments, fear of the COVID, fear of so many things, right? That's inevitable. Bhayam dvitiya b'naveshatakshad. Very illuminating line. Prabhupada would quote that verse a lot. Bhayam is fear, right? His name is Abhay, and fearless, at the lotus feet of Krishna. Abhay Charanaravinda. But most people, they know nothing about Krishna. So there's all these fears, anxiety, like low-grade anxiety. Maybe they can forget about it, and it's a very different thing, but it's always coming back. And why? They're absorbed in the material energy. Vidya and abhinaveshitak. They've turned away from Krishna. Ishada petasya. Viparhi yosmati. And everything is upside down. It's topsy-turvy. Instead of being the servant of the Lord, you become the competitor to the point where you forget, everything. And then it's just you and the material energy, and you're going to lose that battle. So, but here's the solution, mat karma krin. If you work for Krishna, you understand the science to counteract that sense of possessiveness, false possessiveness, right? What is the false ego? What are the two main elements of the false ego? Can anyone remember? Aham, mameti. Yes, I and mine. I am this body. I have a certain age, I have a certain color, I have a certain language, a certain socioeconomic position, all related to this body. And then the things related to this that I can enjoy, they're mine, right? Now, oftentimes you think they're yours, but deep down you understand, no, really the bank owns it. But I can play at owning it, right? And then that's so frustrating because you get kicked out, from the apartment. I can say, oh, I have an apartment, my apartment. No, it's not your apartment. I'm renting. Just like we don't even own this body. Otherwise, that's what Krishna's name is, Rishikesha. He's the Lord of the senses, our senses. If we really believe that and understand, then he should be the enjoyer of the activities of the senses. He's the Lord of our senses. So when we chant Hare Krishna, that's pleasing to Krishna. That's a good use of the voice and the ear and the fingers and everything else. When we're cleaning, when we're selling his books, we're doing anything that's within the program of Krishna consciousness, that's the proper use of our mind, our senses, and everything else that we have. That's mat karma krin. And it really makes sense when Krishna is mat parama. When the goal of our goal in life is Krishna, understanding Krishna, awakening our relationship to Krishna, and tasting the nectar of Krishna consciousness, which is Lord Chaitanya's great mercy. Day one, you could be complete, the most sinful rascal, but somehow or other you get curious what's going on in the Hare Krishnas. You walk in and there's a big kirtan going, and if the beat is good, it's almost like involuntarily you start tapping your foot, That's service. Krishna's watching. Prabhupada said he would see the little children dancing, That counts. That So all of that should culminate, at least intellectually, because the emotion is what we're finally looking for, the absolute conviction and faith. But at the beginning, to make Krishna the ultimate goal of life, I understand I should do that. Okay, I'm going to go about doing it. My mind is still, so conditioned. I can understand it's going to take time. But Krishna is mat parama, the ultimate goal of life. So mat karma krin mat paramo. Then all the activities that we do should be geared toward moving us toward that ultimate goal. And we have so much instruction. Prabhupada quotes here both Anasaktasya Vishayan and Anyabilashita Shunyam, right, on the page 506. So here's the formula. Bhakti Samhita Sindhu is the science of devotion. He's given everything very concisely. So without attraction to the objects of the senses, now that itself is, is a challenge. But the things that are most desirable, yataham abhyunjate, using them as appropriately in the service of Krishna, linking them up to Krishna. This whole thing with prasadam, I mean, my little contribution, was arranging this whole offering of the apricots, and we've been doing it for years now. Apricots or some other fruit, like that. And part of it came from reading in the Nectar of Devotion that, because I live outside, that you shouldn't come empty-handed. You should always bring something to the temple. If you're living in the temple, it's another thing. You're giving your whole life, So anyway, I arranged to do it. I had the facility, and with some others were pitching in, So it's appropriate. It's a vishaya, Otherwise, they wouldn't be selling them. They know that people like these apricots, so they'll sell them. So they're pleasing to eat, but they're being engaged in Krishna's service. So I'm not, as I'm filling up those little bags that I fill up, I'm not lusting after those apricots. I'm thinking, oh boy, I wish I could eat one of these. It's not like that. Everyone knows who works in the kitchen. You're not supposed to do that, right? You have to. You keep in mind, Krishna's going to enjoy this. Krishna's going to enjoy this. That's the whole idea. And therefore it should be done right. You clean just the right amount, soak them just the right length of time. All of these practices have been developed over the years, So, nirbandha Krishna sambandhe, I'm not sure exactly, but the way what this always means to me is that you're not bound up by those vishayas, as the karmis are, but you get bound up to Krishna. You want to get bound up to Krishna, totally tied up with affection, right, and love. So, that's how you do it. Yuktam vayam. This is called yukta vairagya, means detachment. Vairagya means dispassion, detachment in yoga. Not attached to the objects of Krishna, of sense gratification, but attached to Krishna. That's the goal. The more attachment, we were hearing this morning, I heard some of it, online. So Raj, he's giving these great classes, and he read that whole purport, none of which we could hear, by the way, the first time around. I called Tapas, he didn't have his mic on. I can't believe that you guys just listened to the class, you didn't realize there's no mic, there's no amplification. Guess he got a loud voice. Anyway, I texted Tapas, he said he finally communicated. He said, oh my God, he had read that whole incredible purport, and he read most of it again, but it was kind of long. But Prabhupada's talking about the development there of a spontaneous devotion. And well, what is spontaneous devotion? We know what spontaneous it is. It's the spiritual side of what a materialist feels spontaneously attracted to for him to enjoy. Even that verse, and I always forget the Sanskrit, but how can I forget? Yubatinam yata yuni. Anyway, I always forget the Sanskrit. But what it means is just as young girls are attracted to a young boy. Now it's a singular in the Sanskrit. Young girls are attracted to a young boy, or young boys are attracted to a young girl. Similarly, let my mind be attached to you. So that we can relate to that. That's a spontaneous attraction, but that's exactly what we want to avoid, right? Brahmacharis. We know that's the entanglement, that material entanglement. That's the thing. So anasaktasya, without attachment to the things, objects of the senses. Well, how to do it? I mean, this is a formula, but it's not something you can just will. There's a process of, staying aloof from objects of the senses in such a way that they'll attract you. The distributors know you can go out, and if you're really preaching, then you'll be protected. You're presenting Krishna, and therefore, Krishna is giving you from within the heart. He's giving you some spiritual pleasure that blocks out the material attachment. I was never able to surrender to book distribution. I always had, book production side to do, and we'd go out. But Harinam, we did a lot. I remember doing a lot of Harinam, and I've told this story several times. Some of you have heard it, but I don't think you ever heard it. And that is when I was in Philadelphia. We'd go on Harinam. I think it was Saturday night or Friday night, one of those main nights when everyone is out, And they had a big square there where there was no vehicular traffic, just where people were walking, And so there were various businesses, around who were selling things. And just like we have the gas lamp there. And one of the businesses was, I don't know if they only made chocolate chip cookies, but that was one of their main things, And they were always baking them, and they were pumping out the fresh smell of those cookies into the square, And we could smell it, we're in Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. And everyone else could too. But the materialists basically were, being attracted by this. Maybe we should get some cookies, It's like they have, some idea, like it's independent. But we were thinking, yeah, we can smell them, and it smells pretty good, but it's not prasadam, it's not offered. We're not attracted to that, but we'll chant Hare Krishna, Or downtown, we haven't had Harinams in a year or more, or like at least walking Harinams downtown. It's nice to go to the park. But on New Year's Eve, there's a huge crowd comes. A lot of people come to this downtown who never come before, who don't come the rest of the year. There's a lot of crowds, And so it sticks in my mind. So I would often lead, half the time or so. So I'm up front, we're coming to the corner, and there's this passel, I call them a passel, a little group of youngish ladies, what can I say, scantily dressed, dressed for the occasion, New Year's Eve. So we're just chanting away, and I'm realizing, as you do that, this is not attractive, I mean, it's in a sense, your heart goes out. These poor people, the people who they themselves and who they're bewildering and attracting, The whole thing is pathetic. You go down, and there's these expensive. You recently drop $100 for a steak dinner, whatever, God, you lose in every way. You lost your money, you committed so much sin. You're paving your way to hell. And people don't know. They just go into it. We're chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Maharaj likes to tell the story of some guy who came out, and he said, you guys are really enjoying, we're dropping $1,000 in here for they have a big crowd of people, they don't care how much they spend. But you guys really enjoying it. He gave him a book or something, magazine. So the idea is the absorption in Krishna consciousness sublimates, I love that word, sublimates the desire for sense gratification into bhakti. It's the same energy. It's the pleasure energy. When the pleasure energy is expressed through matter, it becomes maya. That becomes attachment. And if you get really into it, you get into the demonic side. Ishvaroham aham bhogi. I'm the enjoyer. I'm perfect, powerful, and happy. Ishvaroham aham bhogi siddhoham balavan sukhi. A little rhyme there. Krishna speaking in the 11th, not in the 11th chapter, 16th chapter. He's acting like a demon, telling us how the demons think. I am the controller. I am the enjoyer. I'm perfect, powerful, and happy. I'll perform. He goes on. I'll perform some sacrifice as a show, so people will see me as religious, and I'll enjoy it like anything. And we have our perfect example. We just had the Shringadev killing Hiranyakashipu. We had a few weeks back, Ram killing Ravana. Ravana, ravenous. You think that there's no, he'll eat anything. That's the Rakshasas. They're man-eaters, and of course he was sexually, uncontrolled. So that's it's what ordinary people do to the extreme. So we want to be safe from that, and Krishna is giving us, and our acharyas are giving us the formula. So first, realize and understand intellectually that Krishna is the ultimate goal of life. Sadhya and sadhana. This is what it's all about. Sadhya is the ultimate goal. What is that ultimate goal? And having established the ultimate goal, what's the means of attaining it? Sadhana. We've heard of sadhana. Sadhana is the practice that we perform. So in order to find those two essential things, and as we grow up on the material side, we're given that. Your sadhya is a degree. First of all, high school, graduation degree. And then college. And then you'll be successful in life. You'll have you'll have money, you'll be able to buy a nice house, that's more or less the sadhya. And the sadhana is hard work and like that. Okay, most people believe that. But we know that's cheating. Maya Devi is, this whole world is built on lies. It's built on lies. The big lie is that we can enjoy in his body, and that'll make us happy. But Krishna undermines that. If we believe that, yehi sangsbharshija bhoga dukkha yona evate adyantamantan nate tu ramate buddha. Those who are intelligent, they understand this verse. He says, the pleasures that are produced of the senses contacting their objects, that's called sangsparshaja, born of the contact of senses with the senses. It's the very source of pain and misery. On the extreme side, we all see that. Anyone who knows what's going on. The opioid crisis is not going away, especially with all of this fear and this pain that's going on here. People are taking it, and but for a little while, it seems like, oh, my pain is relieved, but it comes back worse, and you have to keep taking it before you're addicted, and then overdose and fentanyl and all this craziness. It's just an extreme example of what's happening every day. People just going to the restaurant and, ordering a steak or this or that chicken, And even if it's vegan or vegetarian, if it's not offered, it's still sinful. You still have to suffer for it. So that's material life. The promise, the allurement, and then the crash, the punishment. And and all of these different animals and insects and everything, they're suffering for what they did. They used to be human beings. So we have the great fortune by Prabhupada's mercy and his hard work, and the sacrifice, to have this source of knowledge, Bhagavad Gita, all these other books teaching us. So, to make Krishna the goal of life and act in such a way that we more and more realize him. Mad bhakta. So that's clearly the principles of bhakta, not bhakti. Now bhakti means the exchange. It's not a one-way street, Bhakti literally means what does it say? Yayatamam papadyante tam sataiva bhajamyaham. That it's an incredible verse. I worship them, bhajamyaham, he says, according to how much they surrender to me personally, not to my external energy. Then they stay in jail, and they need more reformation. So we want to get out of that. So mad bhakta sangha varjitaha. Now this is such a theme keeps coming back again. What is it? Sadhu sangha, sarva shastra koi, sarva siddhi hoy. Sarva siddhi hoy. Yeah, this is Lord Chaitanya's formula. Sadhu sangha. Whenever they repeat like that, it's important, very important. So association with sadhus. Now it's interesting that the word sangha means both association and attachment, right? We have that verse in the second chapter. Dhyayato avashayan pungsa sangasteshu bhajayate sangat sanjayate kama. That second line alone has come to have its own meaning. As you associate, you produce your desires. But in the context of the verse, which any mother will know, they want to know who's their kids hanging out with, and get into trouble, so he tries to guide them, So we want to guide with make our intelligence our friend and guide us in the right way. So here is a sangha varjitaha. Sangha here stands in for attachment, right? What does it say? Freed from contamination of fruitive activities and mental speculation. So did you notice this is coming straight from that verse, Andabilashata Shunyam. Jnana karma dhyanavartam. Jnana, mental speculation, and karma is fruitive activity. So the idea is that these are, why is it contamination? Because it has nothing to do with Krishna. Fruitive activities are centered on your own false ego, feeding your, gross and subtle senses, trying to get pleasure. And mental speculation is, trying to figure things out with no reference to the Shastra for material reasons, ultimately leading to impersonal understanding, or that I'm God, or I can be God, or whatever. So it has to be free of that. Varjita means free of these contaminations. And it also means attachments, material attachments. How can we cure those material attachments? Same old thing, by sublimating them. Way back in chapter 2, what did we have? Vishayam vinivartante nirahara siddehina. Rasavarjam rasobhyasya padam drishva nivartate. I mean, when I read that verse, as a devotee, I said, this is exactly what we're trying to do. Vishya. Vishya means the objects of the senses, which bind us, that what we engage in for sense gratification. Now, I always like to point out, it's not an accident in Sanskrit that the word Vishya and the word Visha are very similar. Visha means poison. So that you can imagine that our great poets make use of that. So, what does this verse say? Vishayam vadivartante nidahadasa dehinam. The soul who doesn't consume the Vishayas by force of will, how many tens of millions of people in this country, mostly ladies, but now everybody, trying to reduce weight, Literally, nidahadasa means not eating. Right? So you're not consuming. Each of the senses has its own object or series of objects that it can consume. Right? The eyes want to see beautiful things, and the ears, rock music and everything. So you say, no, I'm not going to do that. But not for some transcendental reason, but just because I want to lose weight, or I know it's bad for me, so I'm going to give up the cigarettes or something. So it's a self-centered reason. So. Vishayan vadivartante nidahadaside. For one who is not consuming them, then these objects, you can stay aloof from them. They actually, it says, it turns away from you. Just like someone who goes on a serious diet, to reduce weight. So you're going along. I'm not eating that. I'm not eating ice cream, chocolate sundaes anymore. All right, we're doing okay. But the renunciation is very weak. Everyone knows, like the alcoholic. I'm not going to drink anything. I'm just going to go into the bar to hang out with my friends, my old friends. Yeah. That's the first thing they tell you at AA, right? No, you don't. As Sangha Bhajita, you hang out with those people, and you're going to get that desire, and you'll have, just one. One can't do it. No. 6 hours later, you're waking up, from the drunk. So that's exactly what this verse says. Nirahara sadehinak. But the idea is the rasa is there. The taste for it doesn't go. Rasa varjam, that remains. But rasopyasya, but the taste goes for one who sees param drishva nivartate. Nivartate means you don't return. So that param stands for the supreme, that's Krishna. Drishva stands in for all the senses. When we can perceive Krishna directly with our senses, then that really cures the desire for the lower things, and it becomes sublimated. The desire to eat nice, you can take prasadam. You completely lose your attachment. Just, how did I ever eat that? I don't even want to think about it. And the favorite example, I just heard Prabhupada quote this verse today. It's quoted in the purports earlier. Yadavadi mamacheta Krishna pada ravinde navanamana sadhaman yudyatam rantum asit. Tadavadi batanadi sangame smayamane bhavati mukhavakara sustu nishdivanancha. You know what it means? So this one you have to memorize. See if you can memorize by tomorrow, okay? Yadavadi mamacheta Krishna. I'm just kidding. We can work on it. So yadavadi tadavadi means ever since this has been going on, then this is happening. So ever since mamacheta, my consciousness, Yadavadi mamacheta Krishna pada aravinde, the lotus feet of Krishna. Pada. Nava nava rasa dhaman yudyatam. Ever fresh, ever new. See, this is the difference, sense gratification, because I can't eat another cupcake. I don't even want to look at it. But you never say that. The great devotees say, I can't hear any more words about Krishna. No satiation. Many times you'll find that. So, nava nava rasa dhaman, fresher and fresher taste. I'm relishing the service of Krishna's lotus feet, remembering them, serving them, smelling them. Then, since I've been able to do that, Tadavadi Badanadi Sangame. Now, he was a great king. Kings often have all facility, harems and this and that. So he had the opportunity. Since that, I've got to that point. Now, whenever because the mind is going to do what it's going to do. Sometimes you remember things that you wish you could forget. So sometimes he says, it comes to mind, I remember my sex experiences. His mouth curls in distaste and he spits. Prabhupada says he spite at it. He spites at it. He spite.
You can imagine, that's detachment. That's vairagya. That's what we're really looking for. And it's interesting that Yamunacharya, I learned this fairly recently because I don't have time to look into all the wonderful biographies. But he was a great student and devotee, and he was also very, very intelligent in debate, So he challenged the chief intellectual in the court of a great king, And he was just a kid. He was just like 15 years old or something, And they were saying, "Oh, this isn't going to. He'll easily wipe the floor with him, He's a very experienced debater, like Keshava Kashmir, you remember? And so the king said, because they were impressed, he was just standing. So, okay, if you're able to defeat my court pundit, then I'll give you half the kingdom. So you could see how confident the king was, So I forget just how it was. It was an ingenious way that he defeated him. I'm going to look into it. But he defeated him. The guy was just speechless, So suddenly he has this kingdom, And he fell away from his strict practices. He got all facilities. So for some years he was a king, So then one of his old buddies, someone who used to be his god brothers, visited the kingdom and said, "Oh, welcome, And he said, "Well, let's go for a walk." He said, "Oh, sure, let's go." They had all these gardens and everything, whatever. Do you know the story? So he's walking with him, and he's reminding him of some of all these old nectar shlokas, And Yamunacharya said, "Yeah, that was a nice one." And he started chanting them, and before boom, Krishna Prabhu was in his heart. He said, "What am I doing?" He just kept walking, and he left the kingdom. It took sannyas. And he became such a great devotee. He was the spiritual master of Ramanujacharya, So this is what he's, in his, and he wrote not only that, but Stotra Ratna. That was quoted in the purport, because I'm listening to these classes. I don't know if the Sanskrit was quoted. Prabhupada would love those verses in the CC. We can pray like this. Bhavanta me bhanucharan herantarak. Prashanta nikshe samanoratantarak. Kadaham aikantaka nitya kinkada paharshi yasyami sanata jivitam. You've heard that before? Bhavantam. Bhavantam is you, my dear Lord. You can pray it. Right, Giridhari. Giridhari like that. E bhanucharan narantarak. Nirantarak means without ceasing. When will I be serving you without any break? No gaps, we used to say. We had a big sign on the wall in the old temple. No gaps. Prashanta, by doing that, Prashanta nikshesa manoratantarak. Every word is so important. Nikshesa means without end. The endless varieties of the monorata, the chariot of the mind, has so many ideas here and there, and taking us lifetime after lifetime. So they will be pacified. All of these unlimited desires of the chariot of the mind. Because I'll be peaceful, I'll be happy at your lotus feet. Kadaham, when will this day be mine? Kadaham aikantika nitya kinkara. Will I, kadaham aikantika nitya kinkara, be one-pointed as your eternal humble servant. There's all kind of words for servant. We know das very well. But this kinkara means a very menial servant. Now here's the king saying that, right? Kinkara, praharshi yasyami. And by this position, I'll be jubilant, totally jubilant. Not just harshya, but praharshi. The pra means extra harsh. Sanata jivanam, to be able to live with such a fitting master. Sanata is a word used for a lady who's married. She has a master. She's in good shape. So I will be happy to have, to be living and existing with such a wonderful master. So this is it's a wonderful prayer. So back to our verse. So now, Sangha free of unwanted desires, firm in devotional service, directed to Krishna as our ultimate goal, and acting in that way. Doing those things which help us remember Krishna, and not doing those things which help us forget Krishna. That's the essence. That's the verse that says all the other instructions are servants of these two. Now, what's some further is nirvaira. No enmity toward anyone. Now, there's this little kind of a how do I say it? Anomaly when this quality, which is there, ajata shatra, no enemy is not born. anomaly that develops when it comes into the English from the Sanskrit. Because Sanskrit is very precise. If I don't have an enemy, it means I don't feel any enmity toward anyone. But in English, if I have no enemy, it means no one sees me as an enemy, and that's not true. Kamsa certainly saw Krishna as an enemy, but Krishna didn't have any enmity toward Kamsa. He killed him as a matter of duty. I mean, he became angry and everything, but but Prahlad was a perfect example. He had no enmity toward his father, but his father hated him with violence, So that's what this means, having no enmity toward anyone, sarvabhuteshu, for all people feeling no enmity. Yasamamete panva, such a person certainly comes to me, and that's the last words in the chapter. So, nirvaira, now this is not just it's couched in the negative terms, but really it's a positive injunction to try to help others also. Nirvaira sarvabhuteshu, if we're not trying to help them become Krishna conscious, so that they can at least start their path back to Godhead as we have, then that's showing enmity to them. I remember when I was growing up, I had no idea of Krishna consciousness. I was completely atheistic. But I was terribly moved by what was going on in the Vietnam War. It's hard to really imagine. For those, only you're too young. Maybe you're too young too. But it was like a decade. It was going on from the early 60s into the 70s. It was always 10 years of this bombing and killing of these innocent people in Vietnam, and wholesale, the children and women and everything. It was just horrible. Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Hare Krishna. Anyway, I really didn't want to pay any taxes because that went into it, and that helps. You join the ashram, stop paying taxes. That's the best part of being a brahmachari for all these years. You didn't have to support all these wars. Anyway, I'm sorry I've got on. I didn't leave time for questions. Danavari, you there? No. See. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhus. This is Dimitri. I just want to tune in and say thank you for the class, Dravida Prabhu.
Okay, Dimitri.
And
I'm sure we'll have you here in person tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Okay. All glories to the Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bo.
Haribo.
Yeah, I could easily go for another hour with that.